Hi, my name is Beth Azor, and I own shopping centers in South Florida. And this is my podcast, I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? So today I want to talk about supply and demand. It is the basis of almost everything I do, especially when it comes to investing in shopping centers and leasing shopping centers. So a lot of times people call me and say, hey, we've got a great deal we found. It's $35 a square foot and it's 50% empty and we can make so much money just leasing it up. So the first thing I want to do is look at how many shopping centers in the area there are, what's the demographics, and what is the occupancy of those shopping centers. Because, for example, I had a potential client, ask me to go look at something, an empty mall out west. And when I went out there, it was the only mall, so that's good, low supply. But there was zero demand because there were zero people. It was on highway, and there literally were no people for 30 miles to the north and 30 miles to the south. And they were offering me a huge consulting fee, like huge monthly, to help them lease it. And I said, I can't lease it. There are no people. So in this case, low supply, but no demand. Okay? Another opportunity came my way in Florida where they found a property, some potential partners found a property, and it was 60,000 square feet. It was $30 a square foot, 10,000 square feet leased. However, it was on a stretch of highway, like a road, state road. And then when I looked at the map, there were 20 shopping centers of the similar size to the south and north, and they all were 50% occupied. So in this case, super high supply, and again, no demand. And you could see no demand because of all of the vacancies. And basically, even if someone, let's say you could find maybe 4,000 square foot gym to come in, that guy, talk about a buyer's market. He can go to 40 owners and just keep whittling the price down to the point where you don't make money for the landlord, right? So I don't care. Sometimes people go, why do you spend so much per square foot when you're buying properties? Because I want high demand by retailers and I want low supply. So I want a shopping center surrounded by a ton of high income population because we all know the basics of retail leasing and therefore ownership is rent is a function of, and I hope you guys are all saying out loud in your cars listening to this, sales. Rent is a function of sales. So the higher sales are for the tenant, the higher rent you can charge, right? So you need people that spend money and that have high disposable income. Or if you aren't in a high income neighborhood, then you just need a lot of people. I have a center with a Ross, Dee-Dee's, Walmart, 7-Eleven, Metro, Wingstop, and a more lower income demographic. But we have 3 million people within 3 miles. So we have a breadth of people that can spend money versus not a large amount of people, but higher income. Either or is good. So rent is a function of sales. So additionally, when you're leasing space, you want to understand what are the opportunities for the tenant that you are talking to. So for example, someone called me and said, I am renewing a nail salon and they're threatening to leave. And I said to the person that was calling me, the leasing agent of the property, I said, how many centers were within 2 miles of your property? He didn't know. I said, well, it's your homework to go find out and then find out in all of those centers, how many nail salons. My guess is that of the 10 shopping centers in the area of yours, every one of them has a nail salon or pay attention to hair salons who do nails because they might have exclusives. So very, very important market knowledge and understanding the use and the competition and the supply. Again, supply and demand. There's no way I think that this tenant is going to relocate if you raise their rent $5, which is what this guy wanted to do. Additionally, I said, how much has this group invested recently into their space? And he had told me that they had just renovated. But he was extremely fearful that by pushing them a few dollars, I said to him, what number do you think you're safe with? And he said $2. And then I said, okay, do you have their sales? No, he didn't have their sales. You guys know how I feel about that. I said, well, I'd go out at the $5 increase. And when they balk and they tell you they can't afford it, that's when you say, well, give me your sales so we can look at your occupancy costs. Now people go, well, aren't they going to lie? Yeah, they might lie, but at least you get a guide. So I believe that he can ask for the $5. I think he can get it, no problem. I also did the exercise with him on the $5 a square foot. I think it was 4,000 square feet. So that's $20,000 extra a year divided by 12 months. How much was that extra per day? And I said, how much is it going to cost him? Let's say he does find a nearby shopping center that doesn't have a hair salon that he could go into. Now he's got to, even if the other landlord gives him TI, they probably are not going to build them out. Again, you don't typically build out for people on uses that are easily fillable, right? If you told me I wanted to do a bike store where there aren't bike stores on every corner, maybe you do more TI for that unique use. But for a nail salon, I don't see a lot of landlords doing full TI packages. So if it turns out that it's, $30 extra a day in rent, they're not moving. For the cost, the legal fees to negotiate the lease, the plans, the construction, there's just no way. So stay tuned. I think he bought into my argument and he's going to go out at 5. But he might not. He might just do 2 and be safe. And, those are the properties I don't want to buy. I'd rather buy a property where the renewals are coming, where I get to be in charge of that, which we talked about on the last podcast. So supply and demand, super important in your negotiations, super important in your acquisitions. Just because you can buy something below replacement cost does not mean a great deal. Maybe it is. But a lot of times, if there's a lot of competition and that's all empty, it's not. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends, subscribe, share it on social media. I'd appreciate it. And if you have a question, reach out and I'm happy to share my advice to you through this platform. Have fun.